I've seen some MultiVersus Doom posting on Twitter and Reddit recently, and it seems that a bunch of people are concerned for the future of MultiVersus. Now don't worry, I'm not going to make you wait 10 minutes to hear if MultiVersus is going to be okay or not. The game is fine, and there's not a whole lot of reason to be concerned. Today I'm going to explain why there's not a whole lot of reason to be concerned, and try and ease everyone's fears about the future of MultiVersus. So when it comes to concern for the game, a lot of the worry comes from two places: the Warner Discovery merger and the game's shrinking player base. Both of those sound incredibly scary, but when we add some context, it's really not so bad. First, let's talk about this Warner Discovery merger. So things aren't looking great for WB. In an attempt to save $3 billion in tax write-offs, they lost tens of billions and burnt bridges with many of their creatives. It's a bad scene, and it seems that people inside of Warner Brothers are warning others to stay away. Legendary, who has been working with WB on the Monsterverse in Dune, are even looking for a new home. Not only that, but WB only has enough money to release 2 movies theatrically for the rest of this year: Black Adam and Don't Worry Darling. Now, something this big is absolutely going to have an impact on MultiVersus, but I wouldn't worry too much. MultiVersus is something that actually generates profit for Warner Brothers Discovery in a time where they desperately need to make money. I mean, we're talking about a game that has 20 million players and it's only in open beta. Let's also look at how they're treating House of the Dragon. That show was a colossal success and it immediately got renewed for a season 2. What the Warner Brothers Discovery situation probably means is that MultiVersus won't get a ton of additional budget, but the game already had a small budget and team. I think it's going to be just business as usual. But there is one bit of bad news. It seems that guest characters in MultiVersus are going to be much more sparse. Despite the developers wanting anybody to be possible, it looks like the game will heavily focus on the IPs that Warner Brothers own for now. This makes a lot of sense. It's a lot cheaper to use characters that the company already owns the licenses for, rather than characters that they don't own at all. And honestly, for some of you, this is probably good news. However, for a lot of us, this is a bit of a bummer. It also raises the question as to whether or not characters like Godzilla, the Lord of the Rings characters, and Harry Potter can be added. It certainly makes them less likely, especially with the news that Legendary are going to break away from Warner Brothers. Personally, I still think we can see these characters and guest characters in general, but it's probably going to take some time. Now let's talk about the second and much dumber reason people are concerned, and that's the player count. So a couple of days ago, I saw someone on Twitter post a comparison of the Brawlhalla Steam chart numbers compared to the MultiVersus Steam chart numbers. I've also seen several posts on Reddit and Twitter expressing concern over the game's player numbers and how they've been dropping. I guess it's time to teach people on the internet how interest in a game works. Games don't have a consistent graph of player count, and every single game of all time is going to have a drop in interest. Every single game has peaks and valleys. Peaks are usually when games add substantial content, release a trailer, or have a massive update. Valleys are when the game isn't really adding anything like that because they just dropped a massive update. MultiVersus is in a valley right now. Before I talk about how stupid this Steam chart comparison is, let's take a look at Google Trends for Brawlhalla and MultiVersus to get a better picture. MultiVersus just had an insane peak, which means that it's about to have a pretty crazy drop-off, and that's what we're in the middle of right now. Most gamers don't play the same game every day, they play a variety of games. I can give a personal example as to what I've been doing. I haven't been playing a ton of MultiVersus lately because another game I play a lot is at its peak. Pokemon Unite just had its World Championships, added Tyranitar, and it's adding Rayquaza in a new map later this week. Not only that, but my favorite Pokemon of all time is releasing at the end of the month. Compare that to MultiVersus, which just had a Battle Pass Morty and a balance patch. Yeah, it makes sense that I'm playing Pokemon Unite more than MultiVersus at the moment. Now, I'm not saying there's no reason to play MultiVersus, but I'm just much more enticed to play another game. Now, what happens when MultiVersus releases a new character, ranked, or adds a stage that I really like? Well, I'm going to play that game a lot again. It's that simple. Let's compare MultiVersus' Google Trends chart to another game like Fortnite. Fortnite's chart is constantly peaking, then having heavy drop-offs. Then it peaks again before it has another heavy drop-off. If we were to cut off Fortnite's chart right after one of its peak, well, would you look at that? Doesn't that look awfully familiar? It's almost exactly what MultiVersus' chart looks like. See, every game drops in interest after the honeymoon period for a big content drop ends. MultiVersus just had a colossal peak, and it'll eventually have another one. Whether it's when we finally get another cinematic trailer, when we get the launch of Season 2, maybe they release the game out of beta, or they finally add a character fans have been begging for, like Ben 10 or Walter White. It's just a matter of patience right now. Alright, so now that we've gone over the Google Trends data, let's go back to the source of a lot of this, the Steam charts. There was a tweet where someone said interesting and posted this exact chart. This person was a Brawlhalla fan, and it's pretty obvious how biased this graph is. If we look at Google Trends, MultiVersus was still far ahead of Brawlhalla, even if it was in the middle of a dip. On this chart, MultiVersus is still far ahead of Brawlhalla. The game's all-time peak is 5 times the all-time peak for Brawlhalla, and its 24-hour peak is still double of what Brawlhalla has. However, the only close numbers are the number of players who recently played. But wait a minute, computer enhance? That's strange. It looks like they took this screenshot at the lowest possible moment for MultiVersus when Brawlhalla is experiencing an increase in players at the same time. It's almost like they took this screenshot at the perfect time to make MultiVersus look as bad as possible. It's like this tweet is an incredibly dishonest attempt to raise up Brawlhalla while tearing down MultiVersus, even though MultiVersus has a 24-hour peak that's extremely close to Brawlhalla's all-time peak. So, long story short, don't be misled by these numbers. MultiVersus is doing fine and the Steam charts don't mean anything. Numbers will go up again when they add some substantial content or drop a big trailer. The game isn't dying, but we are in one of its dips of popularity. This will absolutely happen again once the game reaches another peak, and it's important not to panic then either. This game has just started, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And speaking of things that aren't going anywhere anytime soon, let's talk about my YouTube channel for just a moment. Go ahead and click away if you were just here to know about MultiVersus and its health as a game. But for my subscribers, I'm going to drop a little mini update for you guys. So uploads, you may have noticed, have been more scarce than usual. It's just been a really unfortunate last week or two for me. I had my friend's birthday, so I took a day off for that, but then immediately afterwards, my mic broke, and I had to order a new one. And once the new one came in, I recorded 2 videos, and then the next day, I was sick, and my throat was hurting. It was really rough. It's still kind of rough, but I feel at least good enough to record right now. So that's where I've been. I'm going to go back to, I think, 3 uploads a week. And that does mean we're going to get character concepts again. I'm eyeing for the next one to come out next Wednesday, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you guys for your patience. I love you, and I'll smell you guys later.
Yeah.